It's my pleasure to introduce Shelly Palmer, CEO, the Palmer Group, with his keynote, Post-Pandemic, Winner or Loser, Choose. It promises to be a very fast-paced and informative 20-minute keynote. To ask a question, go to the Q&A box to the right of your screen. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shelly Palmer, CEO of the Palmer Group, a consulting practice that helps Fortune 500 companies with technology, media, and marketing. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the immense personal, medical, and economic tolls the pandemic has taken. No one is unaffected. Putting personal tragedies aside, which is very hard to do, there are a couple of really big questions for 2020 and beyond. I want to talk about consumer behavior, evidence-based decision-making, and the role data, technology, and innovation can play in the near term. We've experienced something like 10 years of social innovation in the past 10 months. Sacred cows have been vaporized. Back in January, only a precious few medical professionals would agree to communicate with you via email or were willing to practice telemedicine. They cited issues like chain of custody of data or insurance companies' unwillingness to allow copays for online or email visits. Email was causing them problems with med-mal lawsuits and on and on. Today, every doctor will see you on Zoom and magically, copays are happily accepted online. Just 10 months from, nope, sorry, to, welcome, we appreciate your business. The television business is a similar story. TV, the art form, is alive and well, but TV, the platform, has been shaken to its core. Cords have been cut, behaviors have been changed, and the world of broadcast television will never be the same. There's a story like this for almost every industry. I certainly don't need to tell you what's happened to the hospitality business, restaurants, Broadway, concerts, conferences, live events, or trade shows. You know all too well. Scott Kirby, CEO of United Airlines, said in a holdings call just a few weeks ago, and I'm going to quote this, "I think demand sort of starts to recover in earnest at the end of next year, beginning in 2022, and business demand getting back to normal is, I would guess, 2024. End quote. Now look, that's one man's opinion, but what if he's right? What will you do until then? We've talked about data-driven thinking, digital transformation, and the evolution of the trade show business for years. But I have seen very few trade show organizers or trade associations attempt to transform their core businesses from concrete sales and in-person gatherings to online marketplaces and digital communities. There's been plenty of lip service, but not much action. So let's talk about what we can do right now. Actions you can take today to leverage the data you have, the data you can collect, and your most important intangible asset, the trust your communities have placed in your organizations. Now look, the easy way out is to properly value your assets and sell them to one of the dozens of PE firms that are looking to profit from the state of the mice business right now. There is so much money on the sidelines, it's just waiting to take your valuable brand in exchange for cash. I was talking to Chris Meyer the other day. I think he's been retired from LVCVA for like 10 minutes, and he's already helping several trade associations value their assets for sale to PE firms. Now, I love Chris. He's truly one of my dearest friends. But if he's working with firms that are willing to give you millions of dollars for your brand, shouldn't you be exploring how to unlock that value for yourselves? My short answer is yes. So let's explore unlocking the value of your brand using data and tech. By early February, it was obvious that Mobile World Congress would have to be canceled, which made everyone wonder about the fates of South by, which happens in March, Cannes Lion, which is June, IBC, which is September, and even CES, which will happen in January of 21. So we did what I would tell you to do. We reached out to the most influential members of our community, and we asked them if they would be interested in exploring new ways to interact with us and with each other online. The response was instant, and it was purely positive. So we went to work. On March 12th, less than 30 days later, we launched PGX. It's an invitation-only online community of subject matter experts focused on business, tech, culture, and innovation, and it's powered by the Palmer Group. PGX has about 3,000 active members that create content, exchange ideas, and do business with each other every day. I was amazed at how much enthusiasm there was and is for a focused, tightly controlled professional online community. The most important thing about PGX is that it creates value for its users every single day. How many of you have started your own online communities? I'm not going to tell you that it's easy to do. You need a fair amount of tech and a solid data-driven marketing team. But all of you already have the two most important components: great brands and a loyal community of interest. One of the biggest mistakes an organization can make is trying to recreate an in-person experience online. I hear a lot of nonsense about using mixed reality or virtual reality to recreate the in-person experience of being in a physical place. Stop it now. About 30% of people who put on virtual reality goggles can only wear them for 15 minutes before they experience motion sickness. And even if that statistic is inaccurate, which I don't think it is, do you honestly believe that anyone is going to sit in a room sensory deprived for hours on end to experience your content in VR? No one's going to spend hours in front of a computer monitor, let alone in goggles. Trying to recreate an in-person experience is a mistake. Your goal is to create new, awesome experiences that will delight your customers and create value. We've been doing an interesting experiment for the past few months. We call them Shelly Palmer Online Networking Salons. Clever name, I think. There are 8 of them each week, and the formula is really simple. On Mondays, we do education, tech, and digital transformation. Tuesdays, we focus on AI and machine learning, and then smart home. Wednesday salons cover health and wellness tech, and then 5G and connectivity. And on Thursday, the salons focus on media and entertainment tech in the morning, and the late morning is advertising and marketing. The salons are super short experiences. Each one is only 20 minutes long. There's 3 minutes of welcome intros, followed by 15 minutes of breakout sessions, and then a couple of minutes of plenary wrap-up at the end. The value to the participants is that it's a daily streaming water cooler conversation. They see old friends, they meet new ones, they learn a little, and they teach a little. We do a lot of work in machine learning and AI, so we crafted a simple machine learning algorithm to sort people into groups with people they were most likely to interact with. And we base this on their public LinkedIn profiles or the paragraphs they submitted about themselves when they requested credentials. We have a lot of good feedback loops, so we constantly retrain and tune the AI model. We also constantly test it against random groupings. And so far, random groupings of people, just press the button and let Zoom break out the rooms itself, are almost as good. So I can save you the trouble of dealing with all of the engineering that went into our version of the Harry Potter sorting hat. Random works great. So the news for you is that our community of salon goers is growing as fast as we will let it. And this is a technique you can use immediately to provide value for your community as well. Now, I know that all of you have made your livings directly from in-person events for years. I also know that almost every trade show is now being done like this one is today on some very basic streaming platform. Some of you use webinar formats. Others use some versions of interactivity. Still others have packaged their educational tracks and thought leadership as straight-up television shows. As many of you know, I used to be president of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences in New York. That's the organization that bestows the Emmy Awards. So I can tell you with a fair amount of experience and expertise that some of the video work coming out of the trade organizations over the past few months has been Emmy Award worthy. There's only one problem. If I wanted to watch a TV show, I'd turn on the TV. TV shows are not trade events. They're not interactive. They have no sense of community. And the story arc of a watchable TV show has very little to do with the story arc of an in-person speech or a thought leadership event. If you're going to invent the future, you need to build on the past, not live in it. If you want to get a deep understanding of what you can do right now, check out how the video gamers are using Twitch. You'll get a feel for how chat and graphics and visuals and audio can be assembled into a fast-paced, action-packed hour that's designed to keep the audience engaged and on the edge of their seats. There's a lot you can learn from these young people who are reinventing video entertainment, but there's even more that you can learn from the remarkable amount of video courseware that's emerged over the past few months. It's extraordinary. The challenge is to use the data and instant feedback to create a hybrid experience that's tuned to your individual audience members. Look, the world is no longer one size fits most. It's dynamically adapted so seamlessly, people don't know it's happening. They're just happy to be engaged with the content. As some of you know, my company has been creating custom executive experiences at major trade shows for the past 25 years. Among other things, we're known for our tech briefings and floor tours at big tech conferences like CES, Mobile World Congress, and NAB, to name a few. These are walking tours designed to help senior executives and leadership teams from Fortune 500 companies experience the show floor and get a visceral feel for the state of their industries. To tell you the truth, we've never been able to scale this product. Trade show floor hours are limited. Exhibitors have limited bandwidth, as do our clients. So the best we can ever do is spend an hour and a half or 2 hours with each team walking a predetermined, pre-approved tour route. At the end, we talk about all the cool stuff we didn't get a chance to see, and we show them how to go find it on their own. Everyone always loves the experience, but there's never enough time to cover even a fraction of what there is to see at a big show. That's no longer true. Our tech briefings and floor tour products for 2020 and 2021 and beyond are a unique combination of demonstrations, live Q&A, and thought leadership content that, for the very first time, covers 100% of our clients' strategic objectives. Yeah, we've done wrap-up videos in the past, but we've never had clients sitting at their computers willing and capable of video chatting with us in real time about what they're seeing. We've done dozens of interactive tech briefings so far this year, and the results are nothing short of spectacular. We would never have been able to do this without this remarkable consumer behavior change. It's our clients' ability to video chat and interact online that's helped us evolve the best series of thought leadership products we've ever offered. You can do this too. I want to talk just a little bit about the idea of virtual events. If you call your event a virtual event, you're sending the wrong message to your staff and to your community. You're not putting on virtual events. The events are real. The people are real. Everything is real. You have to expand your intellectual framework. Of course, you need to think about your business as it is today. Times are tough. It's challenging. But you also need to make a strategic decision. What do you believe? Do you believe that in 2022, everything will go back to normal? If so, you can ignore 100% of what I've spoken about today. If you believe that exhibitors will buy concrete in 2022 the way they bought it in 2019, or if you believe that people are going to get on airplanes and travel across the world in 2022 the way they did in 2019, or if you think that travel budgets are going to loosen up and that the world is going to go back to the way it was in 2019, you can absolutely ignore everything that I've spoken about today. But I think consumer and business behavior has changed forever. I think there will be 25% less business travel going forward. I think that shows that don't create demonstrable ROI for their participants will suffer irreparable harm, and only organizations that adapt to this very clear technological trend will survive and prosper. Look, I miss the world. I miss my friends. I cannot wait to go back to restaurants, to Broadway, concerts, conferences, and just normal business meetings. I love my status on Delta and American and United. I love my 1 zillion Marriott rewards points, and I really love my 2 zillion Hilton Honors points. I can't wait for the world to return to normal. Things will absolutely come back. There's no doubt about it. What's in doubt is whether or not your organization will have adapted to the new ways that B2B and B2C customers do business, and if your organization will still be here. The choice is yours.
Wow, that was great. Shelly, thank you so much. And I'm really, really upset. I can't shake your hand. I can't give you a hug. I can't say, boy, oh boy, sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart. And you couldn't have been, we couldn't have asked for a better keynoter for the first 100% real, not virtual, real event in virtual space. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great to be here, Sam. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. I'm actually very, very excited. So we have over 20 minutes of your time, which I'm thrilled about. We got a whole bunch of questions. The system we've shared them with everyone in the audience, and they're doing some upvoting to see which ones they want asked. So I'll start out with this one. You mentioned that a virtual reality, those goggles, you're not a fan of those. You mentioned that at least with one of your events, the AI didn't prove any better than random. So what you are a smart technology guy. You just pushed down 2 of them. What technology should we be looking at? Which did you recommend?
Well, first of all, there's nothing bad about AI. It's used badly. The technology is fantastic, and we employ it with every one of our clients. Machine learning writ large is one of the most important tools we have available to us in the 21st century, and it's growing and improving at an exponential rate. What I said was, during our sorting of participants, we were trying in our online networking salons. The goal was to mimic serendipity. I am standing in the Wynn Encore complex outside of Jardin in the morning with my friends on the breakfast line, and Steven Spielberg walks by and with one of my other friends, he goes, Shelly, do you know Steven? Like that little moment in time where you can accidentally bump into someone. Yep. That's really hard to do in virtual space or in any kind of online environment. And so the goal was, how can we mimic serendipity? How can we, or if we can't mimic it, what can we do in a digital world or in an online world to mimic it? So we tried to build these salons. Now, of course, the immediate goal was, because our intellectual framework is about matching, because we think about social media and the way you match things together, and all the ways that you can use data to find birds of a feather. So we started with a birds of a feather algorithm. And the goal was, okay, if Sam is coming and Shelly's coming, and I look at their LinkedIn profiles and I see that they both have some things in common, like trade shows and executive functions and things, great. I'll put them together. They like the same kind of content. They'll probably like each other. So that's a pretty easy thing to do, birds of a feather. And we used that algorithm. And we used AI, actually machine learning algorithm to scan, pattern match and scan the LinkedIn profiles of all the applicants. And we kind of sorted them into groups. And then based on the success, and we had a success metric, which was, did you want to meet anyone that was in your breakout session? Did you what were the interactions like? So we put some interaction benchmarks together. And what happened was, like all good science, we tested it not only against itself, but against random, right? Because don't believe your own stuff. If you throw darts, would you do any better? The AI model that we built, and maybe it's just a bad AI model, but the models that we built and constantly retrained are only slightly better. And when I mean slightly better, 3 to 5% by the numbers, which is not a statistically significant amount of improvement. It's not worth the difference between pressing the button and letting Zoom or any of those toolkits just randomly sort people. Because that really is serendipity. Yeah. So we learned that. So that's the AI thing. With respect to VR, I really like VR for certain things, but you have to realize the limitations of the technology. You are sensory deprived. You must be seated to be safe or in a harness. Wow. And there's a limited amount of time. It's good for gaming, but the gamers don't use it the way that any of the inventors expected them to. The large widescreen monitors have taken hold with the gaming community, not VR goggles. There are very few instances in entertainment and very few instances outside of training where virtual reality serves a great purpose. And the idea of mimicking walking down an aisle or shopping, it's just not right. It's like the first time in the 70s we had cable television. You saw people taking television cameras walking down aisles of stores and doing what was then online shopping. It wasn't the right way to do it. They figured out, take a picture, put a graphic up, put a phone number, you'll sell something.
Right.
It's just, it's not time for that technology, and that it's not right. It's just not right for the purpose. You're trying to mimic something that you should be improving upon. You shouldn't be trying to, it's the old Henry Ford quote that I don't even know if Henry Ford ever said, right? If I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse.
Right.
I mean, it's that intellectual framework is the wrong framework for that technology.
Okay, well, I agree with you 100%.
That's unusual.
Well, that's not so unusual. So I do know that we've been in a different world for the last 7 or 8, 9 months. And I also know that biologically, I believe there's some things that happen in your brain when you change a habit. It gets into your body. What business and personal behavioral changes should we be prepared for? I mean, let's talk about Q4 of next year. That's a year from now. We're not going to come out of this the same way. What business and behavioral changes do you think the event professional should focus on?
You know, Procter & Gamble has a aphoristic stat that says anything you do for 21 days becomes a habit.
21 days, okay.
And as you said, we've been at this for somewhere between 7 and 10 months. And what is this? This is we're shut in. There's a lot of pandemic fatigue. But there are behaviors that have changed, really changed. I cited a couple of them in the keynote, but you don't need to work that hard to come up with your own list. And what I would suggest is it's not what I think event professionals should do, because everybody who puts on events puts them on for communities of interest or communities of practice. So what are in a list, like if I was going to do this, I'd make a fairly significant decision matrix and say, all right, well, travel budgets. Who's likely to travel and why? What meetings have to happen and don't have to happen? And go down the list of things that you see have changed and which ones are likely to come back. I can tell you, right now, I've got HR departments where they're risk profiling, putting executives on commercial airlines. And commercial airlines will tell you that flying, because of the air handlers and all that, and the way they're doing flight, the airplane itself is pretty safe. But the process of getting to the airplane is bothering some of the risk professionals that we work with. So they don't want their executives on planes. Those people will come back. The aftershock of this, I've got sales departments that don't need to travel, partner meetings with sales groups where they're just learning to do what we're doing right now, and they're saving hours of travel, and increased productivity. Then there's a downside. So the downside is young professionals who are coming in, the new class of freshmen just past the interns, the first early hires, can't find mentors, can't find rabbis, can't find cultural clues and signals to understand how to differentiate themselves or to grow in the organizations they're in. So this is crazy, because if you're sitting in your home and you're working on a spreadsheet and somebody else, some other 20-something-year-old is sitting in their home working on a spreadsheet, you're going to have a lot of trouble proving that your spreadsheet's better than somebody else's if you can't do what you would do to present. So what parts of our social intercourse, what parts of productivity are going to shift in each industry? And I found, because we work across a lot of industries, we're in technology, media, entertainment, we do marketing across the board. So we've got healthcare companies and automotive and CPG and service organizations, big manufacturing, big tech. It's different. Everyone is different, because the cultures of the corporations are different. And I think the most important part of the question, Sam, is the cultural differences become amplified and magnified now. Like where there are different kinds of management styles, where people are pot stirrers, they can't stir the pots, where people kind of let everybody work independently and there's a big independent culture. Those companies are thriving now because they're hands off to begin with, and people are more productive if they're left alone in this environment. You get the kid, the dog, whatever's going on, you only have a certain amount of bandwidth and time to stare at a screen before you get Zoom fatigued out of your mind. So I don't think it's important what I think. I think it's important what each of the people listening thinks in the context of how they're going to do business. But it's at ShellyPalmer.com, there's a couple of different articles about post-pandemic scenario planning. And if you haven't done scenario planning, whether you hire a company like mine or do it on your own, the methods are the same. And the goal of a good, solid scenario plan is to take the known unknowns, the things we really don't know, score them in a way that gives you at least a set of probable futures so you can look into the future with a better than average chance of placing your bets. It doesn't mean your bets are going to work out any better than random. Trust me, it doesn't. But at least you have the illusion of understanding the problems ahead. And by the way, I don't know that any of us understand truly what's about to happen. I think we never know. But I think I grew up in a world where I thought I could know. And the big difference to me in 2020 versus 2019 is now I know I am smart enough to know I'm not smart enough in 2020.
Well, Shelly, I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate the way that you answered that question, because you reminded me that every picture tells a story. Every vertical, every industry is different, and you have to answer that question yourself. So we talked about how things are changing. I can share something that surprised me with this event, ECEF. In the past, as you know, it was a one-day event. Executives are busy. They love consuming it in one day. We deconstructed ECEF. As you said, it was a real event. It is a real event in virtual space. And we opened it on Monday, so we extended it. I didn't think that many of the executives would log on Monday or Tuesday. I thought they would come in on Wednesday morning and make the best out of it. Well, I was wrong. Happily, over 70% of these executives came onto the platform yesterday, Monday and Tuesday, so hopefully we'll have a better experience right now. So as far as the upvoting is going on, everyone wants to know, you just said you don't know, so share more of what you don't know. What do you think in-person events are going to look like in Q4 of next year?
I think they're going to look a lot like they look right now. There are a fair number of people who are so pandemic fatigued and so done with this. And just because you're done doesn't mean it's over. We had, sadly, tragically, more people pass away yesterday than we have in months, and the case count's going crazy. If we look at 1918 to 1920, you get a little bit of an understanding of how people have been through this before. We have technology now we didn't have then, but people are still people. And some people are going to want to show up in person because they are going to want to. I'd love to go to an event in Q4 of next year in person. The desire to do it. I'm a social animal. All of us in the event business are social animals. So we've got this business. We love to hang out with other people and be social. But I think you're going to have a group that is willing to do that. And then you're going to have a group that isn't. But more importantly, and this is the vaccine or no vaccine, no matter what happens, let's take away COVID for a minute out of this conversation. Just take it away. Look at 2008 and look at the recession and look at what the recovery looked like and how long it took. Every economic number associated with the pandemic, every number makes that look like a walk in Disney World. So 21 is going to be tough no matter how you measure it. Now, let's look at a new consumer behavior. Sam and Shelly hanging out on Zoom, which is what we're doing right now. It costs us nothing. We're set up to do it. The business can afford it. I don't have any risk. I've got an increase in productivity. So what am I going to do to justify the ROI of an in-person event for my staff? How many people will I send?
Yeah.
Is it a sales event? Are they going to create value by either generating revenue or learning enough to cut costs? Like if you get deep into this, forget about the human beings love to party and hang out and network. The events we throw, half of the events we throw, Sam, and I think your experience probably mimic this, are people looking for their next job. They just want to hobnob and hang out and glad hand and, talk about stuff. Okay, and that's at the largesse of their boss, and they come back with some ROI. So I do look at the very tight ROI calculations that someone's going to make in Q4 21 and then determine how much in-person versus how much online business is going to be done. My guess, I could see travel reductions 25, 30% for next year. So is down 10 or down 15 the new flat? Those are the kinds of financial projections that I'm thinking about when I think in hard numbers. Because the only way to look at this is I'm talking to 7 clients and it's all about going to XYZ trade show where we put on events all the time and we co-produce events everywhere. Will there be 25% less people, 30% less people? And more importantly, which ones will come?
Right.
Am I getting senior teams? Are senior teams going to sit it out and learn about it later because now they can?
Right.
What's gonna leverage the tech and what isn't? And so I think it's incumbent upon all event producers to really amp up the ROI, and make that the pitch. It's like, we deliver value. We are a value creation organization. Here's how we create value for you. This is the ROI you can expect. Because otherwise, I think, minus 10, minus 15, minus 20 is going to be the new flat for the next couple of years. And if Scott Kirby's even close to right, and 24 is when I get back on an airplane, with looking for my 327,000 miles in the air, which is what I did in 19. And Sam, I did no 1,000 miles in 2020, no 1,000 miles. So could I imagine myself doing 300,000 miles in 2024? I can't, but I could see half of that.
Okay.
Because I know my own. I go to London. I go to Asia Pac 6 times a year. I go to Asia 10 times a year. I go once a month. I go to London. Half the meetings I go to London for, they're a day and a half. They're board meetings. They're all being done online. Yeah. There's no way in the world they're gonna. Right. It's a $20,000 bill to get me there and back.
Yeah, well, okay.
No one's going to spend that.
Yeah, Shelly, you're not the average bear. You're definitely not.
But it's business travel.
So
right?
here's my next question. We've talked about Q4. People are doing projections. We have some people here who want to ask you, what should we be doing now? What should we be doing this year is pretty much over, but let's say Q1 and Q2 of next year. What are the skills? What are the budget changes? What are the technologies? Because, the tidal wave is upon us. How do we, is it too late to build a little boat? I mean, what do we do the next 6 months?
Sam, I tell you what, the answer to that question is look in the mirror and be honest with yourself, because you can't do this halfway. If you are going to build a digital business, then understand that it doesn't cannibalize your physical business. It's a different business. Now, Jeff Zucker years ago said, why would I trade analog pennies for digital dollars, analog dollars for digital pennies? And then he augmented it to analog dollars for digital dimes a little bit later. That has been true then and now. Wall Street Journal Online doesn't make a fraction of what the Wall Street Journal in paper did. New York Times Online doesn't make a fraction of what the media companies, websites don't do the kind of revenue that television does. There's a lot of data to say you're in a different business now. So now the question becomes, you can't be halfway into this. It's not translating your business to digital. It's understanding what your core business is. And this goes back to the railroad story of Harvard Business School lore, right? The airline business in the early part of the 20th century goes to the railroad companies and they say, we built an airplane, it works, we need some money. And they said, we're not in the airline business, we're in the railroad business, get out of here. And they wouldn't invest. And the way they teach the case study, and I don't think it's necessarily right, is they said the railroads didn't know what business they were in. They didn't realize they weren't in the railroad business. They were, in quotes now, in the transportation business. Now, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, I think that it's a nice aphorism. It's a cute idea, but it's not right. The only way the railroad business was going to invest in the airline business was with cash, right? Was that a good place to put cash? They could have just assessed the risk. They could have decided healthcare was better for them at the time. If you're just putting in cash and your job is to make the cash grow, transportation or groceries doesn't make a difference. But here, you got to ask yourself what business you're in. Because if you're in if you're optimized to put on in-person events where you are the world's foremost expert in putting on a physical event, and I have been to, Sam, you have too, I've been to some stuff put on by some of the people in this room that we're in right now, that is beyond best practices, levels of technology, levels of experience. It's amazing. And if you're great at that, does that make you great at what we're doing right now? Right. Is that your business? If your business, on the other hand, is knowledge transfer, if your business is the creation of value through the sharing of intellectual property, through the creation of centers of excellence, communities of practice, communities of interest, if you make your living doing certain things that can be done this way, or it's never been a big part of your business, but it's a part of your business, sure. But don't think for a heartbeat that you're going to get in this halfway and say, oh, we got a Zoom account, we're good. And I hired a company that knows how to do online, so we're good. You hired a company that knows how to do online. If those words get uttered, you're going to be looking for a job in a year.
Okay, I agree 100%. We have a minute and a half left, and I have two questions. One is real fast, and the other you have a minute to answer. Which of the salons should this audience check out? Which of your 8 salons? That's one. And then in a minute that you have left, what you're doing seems to me at such a successful level that you're competing with us. Should we not invite you into our little tribe anymore? In 1 minute.
1 minute. Go to any salon that interests you, because you're likely to meet people that will help you. But more importantly, for this group, you'll get a chance to see what we're doing, and if maybe it'll work for you, and it's easy to do. And I just think you should try it because it'll help. On the competition thing, if you're a tech strategy and solutions organization, then yes, we compete directly with you. But everybody in this room on a more macro level does compete with a few things. We are all in competition with COVID-19. We are all in competition with the economic downturn. We are all in competition with the data elite and the way they're able to use data, and we are not. We are all in competition with social media addiction. We are all absolutely in competition for people's attention. And if you don't understand how much we compete with Facebook, how much you compete with Burger King, how much you compete with Walmart in 2020 and beyond, attention is the currency of the realm. So be good at that, and don't worry about us. And if you need some tech strategy and solutions, give us a call.
Thank you very much. This was a great opening keynote. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
You too. Take care. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you again, Shelly. ECEF could not be possible without the generous support of the following sponsors. Gold sponsor Freeman. Thanks to Carrie Freeman Parsons, Bob Priestheck, and the entire Freeman family for doing such a great job creating the ECEF 2020 platform and for providing the valuable research as well as the use of the entire Alexandria studio and the great studio team. Thanks, John Schreiber and Lisa Phelps from Las Vegas for your silver sponsorship. Thanks to MDG, a Freeman company, who has been the marketing agency for Lippman Connects since 2013. Kimberly, Vinny, and all the creative folks at MDG, thanks for attracting such a great audience to this ECEF. I'd like to thank our bronze sponsors, Destination DC, Map Your Show, Maritz Global Events, and Shepherd. And the following sponsors: ASP, Aventry, Boutine, Cadmium CD, CNTV, Convention Data Services, Connections Housing, Event Advisory Group, ExpoCAD, Gather Voices, GES, Fort Lauderdale Convention and Visitors Authority, MGM Resorts, Mobile Video Guide, Reed Exhibitions, the Expo Group, Trade Show Logic, Ungerbach, Visit Dallas, and Visit San Antonio. Please visit our sponsors' pages, download their information, and meet with their executives. After this networking break, we'll be heading into our breakout sessions that start at 11 a.m. If you haven't added a breakout session to my schedule, go to Program, Breakout Sessions in the top navigational bar, and choose from one of these sessions. Amy Gable, Creativity versus COVID. Ken Halsinger, Event Evolution Discussion Using Research to Design. Tiffany Moore, What Election 2020 Means for the Exhibitions and Convention Industry. Carrie Freeman Parsons, The Power of Leading with Heart. David Peckinpah, Adaptability. Caroline Sprouse, Empowering and Creating Next-Gen Leaders. Greg Topalian, New Revenue Streams. And we'll see you back here at 11:30 for the first part of Julie Cotteno's keynote, 3 branding rules for the pandemic, twisting uncertainty into opportunity. Following her session, Ufi's Kai Hattendorf and Mark Cochran will discuss how Asia and Europe have restarted in-person events.